Good afternoon. Thank you for this kind presentation, and thank you for inviting me to this nice conference. Yes, I will speak about the difficulty of measuring difficulty but performance in general in synchronized swimming. As you said, I'm part of the IST team in Montreal, and I'm involved as an acrobatic coach and also performance analyst. And the rest of my time is in the lab doing some biomechanics, and I've got a background in gymnastics, and sometimes it helps just to think out of the box to give more ideas to improve synchronized swimming. Today I will show you how complex is synchronized swimming, and as a researcher in biomechanics, I can say that synchronized swimming is probably within the most complex sports that I work with. And after I will address this question, have the sports outgrown the FINA manuals or the rules? And I will finish with some ideas from science and engineering to improve the way we judge synchronized swimming. You know that synchronized swimming is you can have solo, but most of the time swimmers will interact. Up to 10 swimmers will interact. They have to be synchronized. They will create a nice pattern and pattern changes, and they can interact to create patterns, but also to create highlights when, for example, 7 swimmers will just throw one flyers in the air to create nice moves. And it's a young sport, synchronized swimming, and the innovation is huge. And for judges, it's interesting, but it's a big challenge because you can have a large variability between teams, and at the end, it's difficult to compare apple with orange. And the idea is to refine the judging system to be able to compare pears and apples, not both of them. Okay, I press, sorry. Okay, on the video you can see, you can see small patterns, everyone is synchronized, you can have some arms movement, legs movement, it's fast, it's accurate. And you have different parts in a routine. You have some strokes, some figures, transition, patterns, highlights, and the judges has to assess everything. Here, on this video, you can see a lot of pattern changes. The swimmers are aligned or in different shape, and they just change from one pattern to another one smoothly. It's very impressive, and if you are not, if you don't see synchronized swimming very often, if you look at the routine 10 times, you will see new things every time because it's so complicated. And on the last video, in fact, you can see some figures, hybrids, and it's moving. You have a lot of propulsion during this movement because synchronized swimming is also swimming, you have to move. And I would say that in the past 10 years, synchronized swimming has evolved, improved a lot, and following the Olympic motto. It's faster, it's higher, it's stronger, and it is going in the right direction. But the question is, has the sport, the performance, outgrown the FINA manuals? And the way I thought about that was, if you take the FINA book, it's a huge book, good luck if you want to become a judge, and can we use this book to have some automate judging? There is some project in Japan in gymnastics to use cameras and computers to judge. Okay, we are far from that in gymnastics and further in synchronized swimming, but it was my idea. Okay, I will compare, in fact, what is feasible or not feasible for judges to objectively assess performance in synchronized swimming, and what can be done with cameras and computers based on the FINA book. First, if you look at the 3 different panels in synchronized swimming, you have execution in blue, artistic in red, and difficulty in green. And when you look at the difference between the 3 panels, the differences are very small. And we cannot say, if you look closely to each routine, that all the countries are equally good or bad in all the 3 components. It's probably because it's difficult, due to the innovation, to make the difference between execution and difficulty, and there is some overlap into the 3 panels. And perhaps with computer we can improve execution, we can improve the assessment of difficulty, but for sure the artistic part will be always challenging. We always need some humans. In synchronized swimming, for the mark and the scores, you have some categories. Here it's perfect, near perfect. If I keep thinking about my computer, these categories are useless, because if I look at the result at the Olympics, all the best countries, here you have just the 4 best countries are within the near perfect categories. These categories cannot help me to differentiate between the teams or the best teams. You can also notice that the best country or the best team in the world, the Russia, is very near to perfect. It's more than 99%. It means that you have the FINA book, and some team already achieved perfection. What can be next? And if you want to change your what is perfection, you need to change the rules. And if I come back and you see the difference between the team, it's very small. You have the 4 best team within just 4%. But when you look at the variability between judges, you can have some variability up to 6% on the same in the same panel. It's become challenging, because if the variability is bigger than the difference between teams, it's difficult to be accurate. Same thing. Here I just show the different marks given by the difficulty panel between the preliminary competition and the final competition. And you can realize that the score will change between preliminary and final. Why? The routine is still the same. It means that it's very difficult with the tools to accurately judge the difficulty in synchronized swimming. And if I go further, you will have in the FINA book a lot of description about what is a perfect execution, a near perfect execution. I don't want to read everything, but you will have this kind of table for all categories. But when you extract just the words, some words are very accurate. If you see, say, blind patterns, it's easy to say yes or no. If you speak about even spacing, the same, yes or no. A computer can do it. But as soon as you have expression like a very few minor errors or almost flawless, it's become more challenging for a computer, impossible for a computer. And for judges, it's also a lot of interpretation. For sure, they have a lot of training, but because of all these vague terms, it's become very challenging to be accurate and to agree between each other, because every judge can justify why he put that into the near perfect or the excellent category, because it's just a question of interpretation. And yeah, for me, in front of my computer to implement that, it's just impossible. And for the judge, in fact, because you will refine competition after competition your description or your interpretation of what is near perfect, because as soon as you see something better, you change your scale, and it's a big challenge, and you are continuously training and learning. And in fact, because of all this interpretation, what is excellent, what is perfect, is mainly determined by the judges, but in fact, the excellence should be determined by the technical committee. And if I summarize, in the best world, the judges should have good eyes and be very smart to see everything and to process all this information in real time. But the question about the difficulty and the execution, what is good, what is not good, should be determined by the technical committee. This is one example at the Olympics that show that the absence of objective rules can be detrimental for the performance. On the top two, you have 2 series of pictures, and this one are probably for a researcher and biomechanist the most difficult highlights I saw in competition. You have Ukraine doing a double somersault. The first one is a pike somersault, and second one is a tuck. And the second series is Canada doing a half-turn double front somersault. It's very difficult. And when you look at the performance at the Olympic, Perhaps 2 were at this level of difficulty, but most of them were much lower. But as you saw at the beginning, many countries receive a near perfect score, but highlights were far from being near perfect. But there are also some quantitative metrics in synchronized swimming about heights for arms and leg movements, and also a lot of stuff about transition. We call it transition when you move from one posture to another one. And you have more than 200 transition in the FINA book, and you can understand that you cannot remember the value of each transition, even if you are clever and you are spending a lot of time in judging. It's very difficult. But a computer could be able to calculate the difficulty of the routine based on all these transitions. Just to summarize, I think to improve and to help the FINA book just to catch the performance in synchronized swimming, it will be an iterative process, but I'm not sure we can go to the automate judging system, especially because of the artistic component. And if the swimmers just demonstrate that they can go higher, faster, and stronger, we have not a long way, but yeah, we can say a long way to in the judging system to improve that. In just a few minutes, I will address a few ideas to improve how we can improve the judging system, help the judges to assess the quality and the execution of so complicated routines. I don't want to speak about long terms because we can dream, but what can we do in short term? First, biomechanics has been used to give some values to each transition. I think we can do the same for acrobatic moves. This can help the judges because difficult highlights are just recent moves, and it's difficult to interpret the difficulty or determine the difficulty when you saw something new. Also, we can also use some computer vision to determine what is the distance traveled by the swimmers. It's not complicated. We did that for the qualifying competition and saw some big difference between countries. And you just need a video camera. Also, we can also use computer vision to help the judges panel about elements, because when you just judge element in technical routine, you have time to do that. And perhaps using some replay or series of pictures, they could notice, for example, this country, this country did not finish the spin. And, but in real time, it's very difficult. But if you have some slow-mo, perhaps you can be more accurate, because the difference between the best country is so small that you need better tools to assess that accurately. Also, we developed some tools just on your smartphone to assess height. Instead of giving a global mark or focusing on too many aspects, some judges could just assess height during the routine. And we can also notice some differences between countries on these aspects. And height should be also assessed during highlights, acrobatic moves. For me, as an acrobatic coach, I'm expecting when you do this kind of lift to be at knee level for the water level. But at the Olympics, I don't think I saw one height, which for me is the maximum. And some teams were very low. Also, I spoke a lot about this kind of tool on the smartphone we use on a daily basis in Canada. We can also assess or monitor the error in terms of synchro error and pattern errors. Like this, instead of having just global marks, you can have, each time you see something, you can press a button and you will have a global score at the end, and it will be much easier and probably more fair. But okay, biomechanics can help, computer vision and computer IT in general, but also some statistics and psychology. There are many papers, or not many, but some papers about bias in judging system. It's normal, it's human being, but you need to find the best way using social psychology to avoid this bias. For sure, if all the judges gave their mark for the preliminary competition, it's quite difficult from a conformity point of view to change the mark during the final if the routines are very similar. It's why you introduce some bias in your judging system, giving too many marks between the preliminary and the final. And also medicine, we spoke a lot this morning, or I heard a lot about injuries this morning. If you look at the two series of picture on the top, it's highlights. Yeah, 7 swimmers just throw another one of 2 or 2.5 meter high, and she fell on her face, or she fell flat. And probably this one also, we need clear rules about this aspect. Perhaps for me, because it's dangerous, because it's related to concussion, perhaps you should have a 0 in terms of difficulty if you fall on the face. And same thing, because the synchronized swimming is going faster and faster and the patterns are smaller and smaller, it's very easy to that one swimmer will kick another one. But what is the consequence of kicking someone in terms of the judging system? It has to be clear also. And perhaps the last aspect, but there are much more, but will be about flexibility. In the FINA book, it's written maximal flexibility, but what does it mean? Are you looking for alignments, 180 degrees, or are you looking for something in a hyper extension? And there are some consequences about this hyper extension. And yeah, especially for highlights, I think we need to change that quickly for the brain. Just to summarize and to conclude, I think science and engineering can help to improve the judging system, to be more fair, and also to help judges, because it's enormous the work they have to do on real time. Perhaps we need to introduce some penalties and error definition instead of always speaking about a global mark. Is it perfect, not perfect? We need to provide some computer tool to judges and perhaps do some assessment. Some assessment has to be in real time, but we can also do some pre-processing or post-processing. And probably because synchronized swimming is a young sport, we can draw from other sports and fields, and create more committees to subcommittees, just to have some quality control, determine if we are going in the right direction, and also to be sure that the routines are different, because you have technical, free routines, combination routine, and we have to be sure that all the contents of these routines are well defined, just to be sure that judges will compare apples with apples and pairs with pairs. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mickael. I think if we're going to start talking about penalties in synchronized swimming, we're going to need a few more pages in that manual. Again, time for one question. If there's anything bearing it. Yes, there's a lady towards the end.
First of all, I want to thank you. I think that your ideas are brilliant, and I will make sure that I do everything to follow them in the time to come, because I think they're really good. I do have a question as to whether you've given any thought to prior to the swim, assessing the difficulty of the routine so that the difficulty judges at least have a range within which to work. Have you given any thought to looking at the film beforehand and pre-assessing difficulty?
I think it will be quite a good idea, because when I spoke about pre-processing in the judging system, it's feasible because we can have some ideas about all the transition values, and you can, as in other sports, you can provide the contents of your routine, and during meetings you can speak about that, because I think the artistic panel has to be impressed by the routine. But the difficulty and execution panels, if they are impressed, I think they will lose their focus on what they have to judge. It's why if they can know better about the content of the routine before, it can help them and avoid or limit the overlap between the three panels, just to be sure we will have 3 different marks that mean something. But pre-processing is a very good idea, I think.